I would like to hand the conference over to Mr. Vishwaveer Ahuja, Managing Director and CEO of RBL Bank Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Ahuja.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for a discussion on RBL Bank's financial results for the third quarter of FY21. I hope you and your families are safe in these times. I am joined on this call by my other colleagues who, along with me, will address any questions that you all may have. On the macro front, it's good to see high-frequency indicators forecasting a sharper recovery of GDP growth in FY22 and lower than expected contraction in FY21, helped possibly by growth in the fourth quarter of this year. The key monitorable all of us will be watching for as we go along this calendar year would be the success of the vaccination efforts in our country. On the business front, we continue to see uptick in certain segments. Within our various businesses, the wholesale banking book demonstrated good stability and continuous improvement, and the credit cards portfolio has also behaved according to expectations. However, the challenges and credit costs associated with respect to retail business loans in the MSME segment and to some extent in micro banking have been somewhat higher. To elaborate a bit, in wholesale banking, we are now satisfied with the stability and quality of the book, giving us confidence to start growing again in a prudent manner. On credit cards, we have bounced back well, and new business traction is at pre-COVID levels. On micro banking, while the industry at large and our bank have seen challenges in certain geographies, the rest of the book is shaping well. While we remain cautious, we do expect normalcy to settle in the next quarter or so. Retail business loans to the MSME segment was most impacted by the pandemic, relatively speaking. We have taken all measures to cushion its impact, and new business has been deliberately slowed down till the economy picks up and trends in this business segment improve. What has been most heartening has been the great improvement in our deposit franchise since March, and that trend has continued in this quarter also. Granular deposit traction is strong and better than pre-COVID levels. The branch and the people expansion that we did in this business over the last 18 months is clearly bearing fruit. I'll now briefly start commenting on the performance parameters for this quarter. Total deposits grew 4% sequentially to 67,184 crores. Retail LCR deposit, in fact, grew 10% quarter on quarter and 24% year on year to 24,413 crores. This is now 36.3% of total deposits as compared to 31.4% in December 19. Similarly, liquidity position continues to be strong with our overall liquidity coverage ratio at 164% for the quarter. Cost of deposits for the quarter was 5.71%, 27 basis points lower Q on Q and 100 basis points lower year on year. CASA deposits growth was also strong at 24% year on year and 4% sequentially. CASA percentage was at 31.1% in third quarter 21 as against 26.8% same time last year. In fact, incremental growth in savings from our branches has been 2.5 times higher for the 9 months of this financial year as compared to last year. Similarly, customer acquisition, both through physical and digital channels, is 2 times year on year. Debit card spends have increased 30% quarter on quarter. Insurance business is up 22% year on year in a COVID-affected year. In terms of advances, retail advances grew 16% year on year and 2% sequentially, whereas wholesale advances were almost flat to last quarter. The retail wholesale mix, advances mix now stands at 58-42. Retail 58, wholesale 42. Year-on-year in this quarter, revenue growth was 6%, NII de-grew 2%, and other income was up 19%. NII and other income was impacted by interest and fee reversals in Q2 and Q3 on the pro forma slippages as was planned and stated in our last quarterly call. As a result of this, NIMs were subdued at 4.19% for the quarter. Over the next few months, NIMs and other income trajectory should start to reflect our pre-COVID run rates. Our pre-provision operating profit was at an all-time high of 805 crores, up 12% year-on-year and 12% sequentially. As a result of the above and after taking necessary provisions, the profit after tax for the quarter was 147 crores, 110% over the same quarter last year. On asset quality, reported slippages this quarter were nil. Our gross NPA reported was 1.84% compared to 3.33% last year, and net NPA was 0.71% compared to 2.07% last year. Our reported PCR, including write-offs, was 86.4% against 74.8% at the end of last quarter and 58.6% same time last year. However, on a pro forma basis, pending the Supreme Court's final decision, slippages for the quarter, 90 days plus DPD, would be rupees 1,470 crores, on which we have taken full NPA equivalent provisioning. Again, on a pro forma basis, our GNPA would have been 4.57% and our net NPA 2.37%. As per expectation, bulk of the slippages, approximately 1,300 crores out of the 1,470, are on account of retail businesses. Total restructuring so far has been approximately 550 crores for the bank, again primarily in retail. The final restructuring book for the bank as a whole is expected to be within 1.5% of advances by the end of this financial year. Distribution network. We ended the quarter with 403 bank branches, 398 last quarter, up 5 branches, 1,344 BC branches, 1,219 in September, and 412 ATMs, 402 in September, and we expect to add 70 to 80 branches more in this year, in this calendar year. On our capital position, we ended the quarter with our capital adequacy ratio at 17.9% and with a CET1 of 17.1%. I will now hand over to Harjeet to talk you through some details on the retail businesses.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will now give you the highlights for the quarter and market trends as seen by us in the retail segments. Let me begin by talking about the credit card business. The new card business growth is now back to pre-COVID levels. We are now at a new card issuance run rate of around 1.2 lakhs plus per month. Our market share thereby has increased to 4.8%, up 40 basis points year on year. We also saw our card spends cross pre-COVID levels. The spend growth for the quarter registered a growth of 23% quarter on quarter and 4% year on year. Here again, we have shown a 40 basis points gain in market share year on year. The per card spends were at rupees 10,400 per month. While the active rate improved over previous quarter to 49%, it is still below the pre-COVID levels. This is on account of the bulge in the delinquent pool, where cards are blocked for spends. Once this washes out, the active rate should revert back to normal. The spend per active card, however, is better than pre-COVID levels at rupees 21,173, despite the travel and hotel spend category being much weaker. We are still operating with a stringent credit acceptance criteria and will do so for at least a few more months till the Bureau starts showing 4 to 6 months data post-moratorium. A little on the portfolio quality of the cards book. We had previously indicated credit costs of approximately 10% for the year. While we are tracking to that number for the year, for the 9 months FY21, the credit costs are around 7.4%. The pro forma GNPA is at 5.7%, expected to remain stable for the remainder of the year, assuming charge-off of the pool which reaches 180 DPD as per our write-off policy. Thereafter, we expect the GNPAs to start coming down. In addition, we restructured around 4% of our book across 53,000 customers, bulk of which happened in November and December. If we look at other portfolio parameters, we see that the entry rate into delinquency, equivalent to a bounce rate in loans, is slightly better than pre-COVID levels. And the collection efficiencies are also back to pre-COVID levels. This indicates that the stress is confined now to the identified stress book that is flowing through and would get written off over the next 2 quarters, post which we would return to normalized GNPA and annualized credit costs in the range of 5 to 5.5%. Now let me move to the microfinance segment. In our last call in October 2020, we had mentioned that while the market had started showing signs of normalcy, we were seeing stress in Assam, West Bengal, Punjab, and pockets of Maharashtra. Therefore, new business originations were being done in a cautious manner, and focus was more on collections and engagement with the customer. Our collection efficiency today is stable at 92%. However, we did not see any material improvement in the stress pockets I had talked about. Hence, focus on collection continues, and the new disbursements are being undertaken in a conservative manner, largely to existing customers or in areas where collection efficiencies are good. On the ground, we have seen a trend where some customers have been erratic in paying their EMIs. They pay for a couple of months and then skip a month, and then again pay for the next month. This is quite unlike the typical repayment behavior seen in microfinance. It basically indicates that while customers have an intention to pay, however, their business activity levels are not yet back to normal. In the initial months, they started off early, resuming their payments despite the moratorium, but the activity levels got somewhat hit later as infection levels and sporadic lockdown restrictions hit these geographies from August onwards. Also, this has been more pronounced in areas which were hit by natural calamity before COVID, like West Bengal, Odisha, and the Kolhapur and Sangli area of Maharashtra. In Assam, where the proposed bill on microfinance has impacted customer repayments, we had stopped our disbursements much early, from November 2019 onwards. The portfolio has been running down and today is at 2.4% versus 4% a year back. In West Bengal, disbursements have been very limited to existing customers, and we expect this to continue for a few more months till a clear trend on repayments is available. Post-June, we've added around 2,200 crores to the microfinance book, which is around 33% of our portfolio. This book continues to operate at close to 99% collection efficiency. We would want to see this for a little while more and expect disbursements and growth to pick up from March onwards. In FY21, we expect GNP levels of around 5 to 5.5%. Today, they are around 2.6%. And credit costs for the full year in the region of around 2.5%. Business loan segment. The MSME segment, as we have said before, has borne the brunt of COVID-related economic stress. It has still not recovered and perhaps will take much longer and will depend on the effects of economic revival reaching the small businesses. Notwithstanding the above, the bounce rate of EMIs are now slightly elevated still at about 1.2 times pre-COVID levels, but better than 1.5 times which we saw in October. As mentioned earlier, the government scheme around ECLGS was helpful to this segment. As a bank, we have disbursed a total of 655 crores ECLGS loans by 31st December 2020. Around 500 crores of these were to the MSME segment in the retail segment. We also extended the MSME restructuring scheme to this segment. As of December end, around 50 crores of loans were restructured. The collection efficiency in this business is now around 96% of pre-COVID levels. We expect GNPL for this year to be in the region of around 6%, which today are in the region of around 4.5%. Since majority of these loans are secured and backed by high-quality self-owned residential or business premises as collateral, the loss given default is likely to be low as experienced in the past. In fact, the average LTV in the 90-plus DPD pool is below 65%. Therefore, there is a lot of skin in the game for the customers. We are, however, waiting for the Supreme Court restrictions on classifying these loans as NPA to be lifted so that legal action against SARFAESI can begin. It usually takes 7 to 10 months for us to resolve the issue, during which time most customers come to a mutually agreed settlement. Keeping the above in mind, the new business has been deliberately slowed down till the economy picks up, and therefore it is safe to assume that Q4 2021 will remain muted. To sum up, credit card business is back on track in terms of new business and spend. There is a stressed portfolio which has been dimensioned and will get charged off over the next 2 quarters. The entry delinquency rates are back to pre-COVID levels. In microfinance, we continue to be watchful in the stressed geographies. In other places, we should see disbursements and growth picking up in this quarter. The MSME segment has still some time to recover, and the new business is being done with tightened acquisition filters. I will now hand over to Mr. Vishwaveer Ahuja for his concluding remarks.
Yeah, thanks, Harjeet. To briefly summarize how we see things going forward. On liquidity, deposits and cost of funds, we expect granular growth in deposits to continue handsomely. We expect to see further improvement in retail LCR metrics as we bridge the gap to our larger peers. Cost of funds has come down significantly, and we should see this trend continue, and therefore enhancing our lending competitiveness. On the advances side, on wholesale, we are only focusing on better rated corporates now. As you will notice, 75% plus is now in the A and better category. We have had continued success in managing the BBB and below portfolio, which has not shown any adverse trends. In this segment, also, we will now start positioning for some growth. We will continue growing market share in our leading businesses. Now, with a stronger balance sheet. That is, especially on our credit cards business, we expect market share gains to steadily increase. On the rest of retail, like Harjeet said, the credit costs have been somewhat higher than expected, largely in the MSME and to some extent in the microbanking business. However, we see the stress peaking and normalcy returning going into the next financial year. Going forward, there will be greater focus as part of our strategy to grow these secured annuity businesses of the bank. As you know, about a year ago, we started doing affordable housing and low-cost mortgages. In the affordable housing, we have put up 65 branches thus far, and another 10 will be added in this fiscal year itself. In the next year, we plan to add another 75 branches. As we enter FY22, we will look to take advantage of opportunities in our rural businesses as things normalize and introduce the complete bouquet of products, including home loans and tractors there. Similarly, expanding the branch footprint in urban areas will also help improve the cross-sell potential as it continues to grow as an important feeder into the retail assets and card business. As such, on an overall basis, we expect not only to reduce the inherent risk in our business model, but also improve the predictability of the earnings profile going forward. The above will be, of course, be supported by a strategy to always remain well capitalized and maintain sufficient liquidity buffers. In conclusion, I'd only like to say that our operating performance this quarter has been rather satisfactory. Our capital and liquidity levels continue to be robust. It is heartening to see the growth in the deposit franchise, and we continue to grow granular deposits and reduce our funding and operating costs such that the bank as a whole becomes much more competitive. This should stand us in good stead, particularly as we have a couple of market-leading businesses where we see growth revival happening. Having said that, we are of course monitoring the recovery in the economy and are cautiously optimistic. Thank you. With that, we'll now open up the call for question and answers.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and two. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Adarsh Paraspuria from CLSA. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Rajiv and Harjeet. First question on microfinance. Just wanted to understand, did you indicate credit cost of 250 basis points?
Credit cost of 250 basis points.
Yes, that's what
250 basis points. Yes.
That's seemingly quite low, right, vis-a-vis the problems that we are seeing. So is it because of our FLDG or there is because pretty all right in the context of the commentary that we've got about problems in specific districts in certain states. So can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So see, this is not on account of FLDG or anything. The FLDG is still to kick in. Basically, our exposures in some of the markets which have been hit are much lower. For example, Assam, we were able to bring down the exposure to only 2.4%. As a result of which, the stress pools are still much lower. And therefore, you may find it lower as when you compare it to the market. We expect by the end of this year, this to be in the region of around 5.5%.
Lower credit cost.
Yes.
So what was, sorry, I missed.
GNPA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm talking GNPA only.
Yes, sir. Clarify. What is the GNPA today? 2.7.
GNPA today is 2.7.
Yes.
Expected to go to 5.5 by the end of this year.
That's right. You got the answer now?
Okay. And Anjali, if you can just talk about, we didn't see data about collections in MFI. Can you just talk about where collections are, and that gives some sense of, because what we are seeing, and even the industry bodies represent it, is that there was a steady improvement in collections till, let's say, November, and post that things have kind of been flattish on collections, right? So it's not really going back to those 98, 99 on a state level. So if you can just talk about where collections is for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let me just give you collections of some of the states which I had mentioned where there was a problem or we are sensing.
And overall,
Okay. The overall collection which we said was 92%. In whether we talk of West Bengal, Punjab, Maharashtra, Odisha, they're all in the region of about 88 to 90%. Assam is in the region of about 60%.
So Harjeet, you still find it difficult that how does this add up to 2.5%? Ideally, it's a fast charge of business. So if collections are closer to 88, 90, you should be having a very fast charge of policy, right, in this business. So ideally, the credit cost should be higher, right? Because collections are about 6, 7, 8% below pre-COVID, and we're talking about 2.5% credit cost.
So understand what the way it will happen is, there was a moratorium till August end.
Yeah.
Customers started paying in between. So if you look at this, only about 2% of the customers who have not paid at all. Customers resumed their payment during moratorium itself. And hence their flow into 90 DPD is much slower. But when your collection efficiency over a period of time runs into this, that is the reason why by March this the GNPA pool will swell to about 5.5%.
Okay. I got that. And second question was on the reversal of income from NII. Are we through with the impact? Because if I remember right, we started accounting for it in the second quarter, and we said that we'll account for majority of that in the second and the third quarter. And the impact this quarter seems to be a little more than the second quarter. At least looking at the NII trend.
That is true.
How does one look at it going forward?
Yeah. So yes, we have pretty much. Jaideep, you want to answer that question?
Yeah. So Adarsh, I think the reversal this quarter was slightly higher than last quarter, which therefore means we have clearly hit the lows of the NII. Now we should start trending back, where Q4 should be, in our judgment, better than Q2, but not necessarily all the way up, which will happen by Q1.
But reversal to nahi ho raha.
Got it. And my last question is to Harjeet. There usually is a correlation between card fees and the non-employee OPEX, right? Because a lot of it is paid in benefits to customers. Are you seeing a trend where that benefit that you pay on cards is lower than usual? You're getting the spend income, but the benefit payback is lesser. People are using that lesser.
Benefits by means, are you referring to reward points?
Yeah, rewards. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two types of benefits that you typically give in cards. One is reward points, and one is the offers which we give. The reward points have been lower for the simple reason that reward points for delinquent customers which flow through are reversed. So that expense is lower. We also took a conscious call during this period not to run very aggressive customer offers. And that has worked in our favor because our spends are usually around the daily spend category. And that is where most of the build-up of our spends happen. So yes, from a cost point of view, that cost is lower. Also, what we've seen is that on our cards, we did have some benefits like a lounge access or a free movie ticket, etc., which have not been used in the normal run rate manner during these months because travel is lower, cinema halls are not yet fully open.
Got it. That's it. Thank you, Vish and Harjeet, for your answers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kunal Shah from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for taking my question. So, firstly, in terms of this entire BB and below pool, if we look for this particular quarter, it's gone up by another 4 odd percentage points, and now it's like almost 16% of the portfolio. So, why is it actually happening, and how do we read that? Maybe we articulated that we are pretty confident in terms of the behavior of the corporate pool now stabilizing, but how should we read into this?
No, I don't see that.
Slide 18.
Yeah, I'm on slide 18. It's lower. Yeah, BB is lower. It is 3,380 compared. BB is 3,380.
It's coming off. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming down.
Okay, and this is despite the write-offs which are there. So I think we see a significant write-offs which have happened on the corporate side. Okay, and I think definitely that would be on 100% provided and all.
These are all standard assets, man.
So NPA anyway gets excluded.
Okay, so this is only on our entire standard pool which is there.
That is right. That's right.
Okay.
These are all standard assets. And the comment I made, and I want to emphasize that, is that actually, while there is always concern and circumspection on this amount, but that 6% number is pretty stable, and the slippages from there over time, have been minimal. In other words, the comment I was trying to make in my commentary, as this has held up very well over time. I mean, these are those small, medium-sized businesses which are the better quality ones, which tend to sort of stay within that category of BB plus, BBB minus. But at the same time, there are good ongoing concerns, and their repayment, track record is also pretty decent. So their credit profile from a rating perspective, may not be that high because of the nature, size, scale of the companies. But actually speaking, that portfolio has been behaving pretty well.
Sure.
And,
So,
and it remains very well contained. That's the first part. And when you actually add the facility structure, the security profile, all of that, it comes down to as little as 3.5%, because typically the facility ratings are superior. And as we've commented on the next slide, if you take into account much of that, more than half of that is investment grade. If you add the facility structure and therefore take the rating on the basis of that, they've moved to investment grade category.
okay. Sure. And secondly, in terms of the overall SMA2 and SMA1 pool, if we can just get, so pro forma slippages, it's been quite high. How about the SMA1 and SMA2 pool? And going forward, maybe given that we have been guiding for credit cost very much in line with last year's average, maybe few percentage points plus minus. But given the deterioration which we have seen, particularly on the retail side, on the MSME which you articulated, does that make us to revise the guidance as such? We had given it on individual businesses side, but cumulatively, how would it finally look?
Yeah, so in the slippages in the quarter, as we said, much of it is coming from the retail side, So
yeah.
When you look at corporate slippages, it was not material from that point of view. Less than 150, 170 crores, which is pretty standard for a running bank of our size. Yeah. And and from the retail point of view, I think we gave segment by segment. If you take any segment, if you say take cards, we had said 6 months ago, and we said it again last quarter, that during the COVID year, we expect, total delinquency to be around 10%. And, we will stay within that or around that number. So it's very much gone according to expectation. And we expect the GNPA in that portfolio by the end of the year in the 5.5% range. Similar is the range when it comes to, as Harjeet just explained, on the micro banking side. And on the retail business loans to MSMEs, that may be slightly higher, may go up to 6%. Because that segment, as you said, is more impacted. So that's the run through in terms of the NPA impact. And the slippage is just a reflection of that, that number as it's flowing through.
Sure. Okay. And lastly, in terms of the provisioning, if you can just give the breakup, have we drawn upon any of the contingency buffer, and what was the overall breakup of the provisioning for this quarter, and write-offs as well?
The write-off number is, I think...
in 70 odd crores.
Yeah. So that's on slide 22, I think.
Yeah.
So, see, the philosophy, yes, we have partly used the COVID provisioning, but at the same time, we have made sure that we are more than adequately provisioned as an institution. So, for the entire pro forma book, we have taken more than adequate NPA equivalent provisioning, more than adequate. In addition, we have increased our PCR. So, additional provisioning has gone into PCR also. So, on the reported book, that is now gone up to 86%, and on the pro forma book, now our PCR has gone up to 71%. So, that is the way we look at the situation, that we are overall, even if you take the pro forma book, we are 71% PCR, which is more than adequate going forward. But yeah, so that's the way we have looked at it.
And Kunal, we have taken borrower-wise classification, so completely followed IRAC for the pro forma GNPA.
Sure. And just in terms of overall specific provisioning, the pro forma provisioning, the provisioning towards restructured assets and drawdown from the buffer, if we can just get the breakup of that, and finally getting to this provisioning number which we had reported, that would be very helpful. Yeah,
we'll try and share that with you separately.
I don't have that handy.
Sure, no worries. Okay, thanks a lot and all the best. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vivek Ramakrishnan from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, good evening, sir. I have 4 sets of questions. I'll just quickly ask them in sequence so that you can pace your answer. First is in the microfinance business. Is the difference in collection efficiency and GNP on one hand and actual credit loss on the other hand, is it because the customers are paying 2 installments, they're not paying 1 installment? So it's more of an accounting issue than a customer behavior issue. That's question number 1. In credit card business, do you have data on how many of your card customers are actually your savings bank customers also? Because it'll be like a cross-sell data, and you would also better be able to measure their well-being, especially because you said you would tighten some norms. So if you could just give us some flavor on what you mean by tightened norms in the entry point of customers, that would be useful for us. Sure. Business installment loans, is it unsecured or secured? Because normally people use for unsecured. I think you mentioned secured. So, and the last question is on corporate loans. We see that, because of the number of high-rated corporates being, good corporates being not that many who are borrowing, there's a crowding out and, interest rates to lend to them are falling, especially with this MIBOR linked rates and all. So how do you, what is the profitability in this segment? That's it, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Let Harjeet take the first 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah. So on the MFI side, the reason I mentioned that was that the customer intention looks good. They had started paying from June, July onwards. They are paying as and when they have money. So while they are erratic, the payment keeps coming, which means that they're not straight flowing into 90 plus, and hence the reason for what the GNP number we shared with you today. But we expect that to improve, and the collection efficiency seems to be holding. Now, your second question was on the card side, where you said how many of the customers are from savings banks. So roughly about, I think, about 7% of the total portfolio are savings bank customers. But if you recall, we've always said that the way we build this business is by looking at data from our partners to be able to better profile the customers and understand their credit quality. We understand that roughly about a little over 60% of these customers come from the Bajaj partnership, where we have a lot more details around their profile and their credit behavior. And that is what helps us in being able to forecast and control the risk in the portfolio. During this moratorium period, we further enhanced our scorecards by looking at other data as well. So we looked at data in terms of some alternate data in terms of how customers are performing on our partner businesses. For example, if it was a Zomato, then how were they dealing with it, or if it was anything else, you were getting some information from there. We also found that the customer had taken moratorium on other loans, and to the extent they had taken also a very good surrogate in terms of the risk on the customer. It not only helped us in classifying risk and therefore dealing with it on an existing base, it also became a very important underwriting criteria which went into the scorecard. And therefore that is now critical, irrespective of the, let's say, the bureau score of the customer, how many trade lines, the leverage, the payment rate, moratorium taken, not taken, what percentage of the loans moratorium taken, all those become an element to this. And that's how the card portfolio delinquencies have been kept in control. On the business loan side, as you rightly said, most of them are secured, backed by property and collateral.
With good LTVs, you commented.
Yeah, LTVs I commented. So even if you look at our portfolio, which had gone to 90 plus, the LTVs are well within 65%.
And corporate question. Yes. I mean, look, I mean, the COVID has thrown up, many challenges across the board, for all the various economic pockets and segments. In the wholesale banking business, we have a very credible presence. We have the full product suite of not just the balance sheet, but also the trade finance capability, the foreign exchange capability, the capability in terms of cash management and payment services and digital, services. So money is made not just in terms of interest income, but it's made, from the full bouquet of services that we tend to extend to a corporate client. Said this time and again, that in terms of our business model, we look at multi-product relationship on the corporate side. If it's a balance sheet only kind of a relationship, we are likely to stay away, and so on and so forth. So typically, the interest income is embellished or enhanced by the collateral earnings from the relationship, so that the relationship return is at least positive and decent. So that's the way we look at it. So surely, if you look at the balance sheet income, you will not see that as a very profitable activity, particularly doing business with highly rated companies, and obviously the rates have come off dramatically in the last few months. So, in substance, all I can say is that our strategy with respect to this space in the last 12 months has been one of conservatism. As you know, pre-COVID last year, around 4 or 5 handful of corporate accounts, we did experience challenges and stress, and we had to deal with that. So what we did is we de-risked the entire wholesale balance sheet. And we talked about that sufficiently in terms of the steps we took to de-risk that balance sheet in terms of, increasing granularization, removing concentrations, tightening underwriting standards, etc., and moving the entire portfolio up the rating scale. So we did all that. The idea was to have safety. Thank God we did that. In a way that having come to us a year earlier, getting into COVID, honestly, on the wholesale side, we've not had stress on the new stress on the wholesale side caused by COVID. Whereas for many other institutions, that may be also the case. So we were able to ride through this phase, staying safe, and although making lower returns, but at least making positive returns, in this space, and taking this opportunity to at least bring that portfolio to a size, to a shape and quality, which at least, and in the meantime, not diluting our relative position with these high quality customers. So today, if you see whether with our cost of funds going down, pretty nicely, as you will notice, we are becoming more and more competitive, as an institution, even in the wholesale lending space. Notwithstanding the fact that we make other sources of income from the wholesale space. So the point being, this has given us the time and space to work on the liability side, to widen and deepen our retail franchise on the liability side, to basically bring down our cost of funds and improve our competitiveness. And actually coming out of COVID, I think we are much strongly positioned to even revive doing more business on the wholesale side. So I see this as a big positive development for the bank, in terms of going forward. Retail was a high growth area for the bank. We talked about it so much, and these are high ROA businesses, the card, the micro banking, etc. So yes, they were riding the economy. COVID has impacted them a little more in that sense, but the costs have been such that we are able to absorb them. And now, having done everything in the last 9-10 months, I think we are reaching the tail end now, i.e. the fourth quarter, and after that, higher and higher levels of normalcy should start coming back. And we do expect, given our market-leading positioning in certainly 2 out of these businesses, i.e. cards and micro banking, we expect, therefore, that profitability to also start coming back. So that's why sort of in the closing remarks I said that overall, if you see, the entire sort of institution, we are trying to, on the one hand, reduce the embedded risk in the business model itself, trying to build more and more secured products even on the retail side, but at the same time, take advantage of the growth opportunities that we already have in a couple of businesses where we are positioned strongly.
So thank you very much. Normalcy is a lovely word in these current circumstances, and I wish you good luck.
No, I said cautiously optimistic towards the end. That was my last 2 words.
Okay. It's even better, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohan. Well, we just lost the line for the current participant. We take the next question from the line of Rohan Mandora. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. So on the credit cards, I had a couple of questions. One is in terms of the MDRs that we are earning on the online spends and groceries, how does it compare with the MDRs on, say, travel-linked spend and the blended MDR that we will be earning on the portfolio? And since the spending pattern has changed right now, is there any material change in the MDR, blended MDR on the portfolio vis-a-vis, say, a year ago? That's one. And second, if you are looking at the credit card spends for the quarter vis-a-vis the last year or maybe the previous quarter, and the card fees that we have earned, there is disproportionate increase in the card fees. So if you can explain what are the components that are driving the fees within the card portfolio right now?
So by MDR, I guess you mean the interchange. Because as the issuing bank, we earn interchange and acquiring banks on MDR. So interchange over a period of time, if I was to compare it, let's say with a year back, has come down from about 1.45%, which we used to earn on a blended basis, to about 1.35, 1.37% today. And that is because the large ticket spends, especially around travel, etc., are not happening. Neither is hotel happening. And there has been more towards the either the online spend or towards supermarket groceries, etc., where the MDRs are interchange is lower. But if you look at quarter by quarter, you will see that our POS spends have picked up and are now back to let's say pre-COVID levels, which therefore enable us to get a higher interchange. So we expect some normalization, but I think some spend behavior has changed. So we may not, as an industry, may not be able to revert back to, let's say, a year back's interchange.
Sure. And on the card fees versus spends?
Yeah, so last few quarters, especially the last quarter, you will see a slight bit of bump up on fee on account of late fee.
Okay. So that's almost 62% sequential jump. So it's primarily because of the late fees that we are getting?
No. Sequential jump you are seeing is because we were, during the moratorium period, two things were not happening. If you're comparing with moratorium period, the spends were very depressed and we couldn't charge any late fee.
Okay. Because even year on year, the spends have grown by 4% and fees has gone up by 22%.
That is the late fee which has come in.
Late fees is there. Okay.
You
so that's the key
component. Late fees come in, and whatever cards we acquired post that, their annual fee kicks in.
Sure. And you also talked about the reward point expenses being lower. So is that adjusted in the fee line item or is it part of the OPEX? OPEX. Sure. Okay, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhaval Gada from DSP Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Just two questions. One is related to provisions. I just wanted to reconcile the math. Approximately 280 to 300 crores is what we would have used from our buffer of last quarter during the current quarter. Is that correct?
Approximately, yes. Like I said, we'll send the exact details later, but you're in the right ballpark.
Okay. And then the second part is, if I look at the NPA composition today, based on the segmental numbers, it seems that a large part of the write-off this quarter is from corporate, and next quarter we'll see bulk of the write-offs related to MFI and cards. Again, is that broadly correct? So therefore,
absolutely correct.
Okay. And understood. And then if you could just tie in, so basically at the end of the year, the calculated coverage, so while including technical write-offs, the coverage looks high, but on calculated basis, the coverage would still be slightly at the lower end, sub 50%. So how do you think about that going into next year? I mean, directionally, what's your intent on that number?
Yeah. So we've been in that 50 to 55% range on the calculated coverage. This will actually inch up because credit card slippages that may happen again, they will typically come with high PCR. So this will just go up because of the product and the slippage coming through retail.
Okay. And just lastly, in terms of the credit.
One minute. Can I just add to that answer?
Yeah.
On a, in sort of on a reported basis as we report, see, we have moved from a 58.6% this time last year to 85-86% now. Even on an effective basis, we have moved up 15-20%. Now, we decided at some point in the last few months that we should always remain above 70, and the effective coverage should also keep creeping up. Yeah, which will happen naturally as the write-downs on the card side, accelerate, based on our provisioning policy, which is aggressive. So that will not automatically happen, and you will see that happening quarter on quarter.
Dhawan, and the other thing is that on the business loan side, we are actually quite comfortable with, because it's a high LTV, low LTV business with LGDs being pretty much in the sub 15% range. The cover there on that portfolio will be quite comfortable with 15 to 20% cover.
Understood. And just lastly, on the MFI portfolio, so I think Harshit, you mentioned about that slight delay in terms of the bucket movements. But just if you could give the 30 DPD in this portfolio, and just to get a sense, how much gross weak assets, how much is that number? So if you could give that would be useful.
So I may not have a 30 DPD number, but I had indicated that's why the year-end GNPA at around 5.5%.
And what would be the write-off? Because a lot would depend on how much write-off you do. So that's the reason I'm just trying to get.
Write-off will not happen this year. Write-off will happen next year.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you and all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of MB Mahesh from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. I just had one clarification. If I look at the overall slippages that you have reported for the quarter, and is it right that the numbers that you are reporting, let's say the gross NPAs in the card book and the MFI book at about 5.5%, is that the current number which is sitting there, or it is on the pro forma numbers, or is it on the reported numbers?
Everything we are talking is on the pro forma numbers.
But not MFI. Yeah, MFI number for the December number is about 2.6.
No, but the commentary is on pro forma. The entire commentary that we have discussed with all of you is on the pro forma basis.
Okay, so when I look at this 1,400 odd crores of slippages that you have reported, and then if I look at the slippages that you're reporting of, let's say, gross NPAs of 5.5%, is there any way to analyze as to whether you have reported all what needs to be reported in this quarter, or is there more carry through into the next quarter as well?
No, Mahesh, we have basically, when we report GNPA on a pro forma basis, that is basis following IRAC, which is borrower level NPA classification, like we would have done if the Supreme Court judgment was not on a daily NPA basis.
No. Sorry, I'm asking the reverse question. Now, if I ask this 1,470 crores of 1,400 crores of slippages that you have reported this quarter, yeah, and then if you say that I expect gross NPAs of X% in credit card and MFI, have you factored all the possible slippages in this quarter, or is there going to be a spill off into the next quarter as well?
How can I factor slippage in this quarter, Mahesh? How can I mean, basically,
slippages are kept for future NPAs.
As and when slippages happen, it will fall into NPA next quarter.
Okay, so let me rephrase it. Has all whatever has to slip into the 90 plus bucket, have you reached the point where it has reached the peak slippages on the credit card and the MFI book?
Credit card, yes, MFI no. So whatever has become 90 plus
or was 90 plus during the quarter has been taken into slippage and has been taken into the number of the GNPA, which we have performance GNPA, which we've informed. When I'm giving you
slow down. I'm just repeating what you're saying. Everything that was 90 days plus, including what touched 90 days and maybe slipped back to 70 days, we have taken all of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I just kind of have to extend this question here. I have a book of 12,000 crores in let's say the credit card book, and you kind of indicated that, let's say, the gross NPA goes to about 7-odd%. So that essentially means, let's say, it goes to about 5.5% today. It can translate to about a 600 crores kind of a slippages on a net basis. On 6,000 crores of MFI book, if you just put a 5.5%, it translates to about 350 crores. When I look at your slippages, which you have reported about 1,450, it does all what needs to be figured out in the gross and net NPA line from these two books, has it reflected in the books or not? That's the simple question I have.
Yes.
Today,
is it fair to assume that next quarter the slippages which comes for the bank will be a meaningfully lower number?
Yeah. The straight answer जो है आज का number बता दो ना.
So that's what he said. 5.5 for cards, 2.5 for microfinance.
5.5 for cards today नहीं.
Yeah, 5.7 for
So December 31st number GNPA now. Okay. December 31st number on GNPA on a pro forma basis, forget reported and all that. On a pro forma basis, for cards would have been 5.7%. Okay. For microfinance would have been 2.6%. 2.6%. Okay. And for other business retail loans, including MSME, would be 4.5%. Okay. And for wholesale bank as a whole, what's for 4%, right? 4%. Okay, this is the entire portfolio broken down for you. Yeah. If you take the average of the 4 weighted average, you'll come to 4.57%.
Okay, perfect. This is useful. I'll take this question offline. I just wanted to understand if I have to forecast the slippages for next quarter alone, just for the time being, are we in a point to say that this number will be a meaningfully lower number out there?
No.
No, so
what we can say is that the gross NPA number across the portfolio will be in similar range. Yeah?
Okay.
In other words, the entire sort of, I'm talking about the bank as a whole. 4.7 will be in that ballpark, 4.6, 4.7, whatever it may be, 4.5, even like that. But obviously there will be, slippages. Because like you're saying, in microfinance, some more slippage has to happen. In cards also, some more slippage has to happen.
Okay, perfect. This is useful. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amit Premchandani from UTI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Sir, good evening. What is the outstanding contingent provision now? That number was around 500 something last quarter.
So the previous question had that have we taken about 250-300 crores, and we said yes. We said in that ballpark, yes.
So is it safe to assume that around 300 crore plus is the outstanding contingent provision now?
No, like we said, we'll send the exact number. This is the third time it's being asked. Little over 50% has been utilized. The rest is still to be utilized. That's the answer to the question, but the exact numbers we'll send you. Yeah. Having said that, we have also taken not only the IRAC provisioning on the pro forma balance sheet, we've also taken additional PCR related provisioning, which sort of further adds to the overall provisioning number. That's the way to look at it, leading to an overall provision coverage ratio.
And in one of the previous commentary, you had said, I think Jaideep had said that the NII reversal will be much more muted from next quarter onwards. So does it imply that, which by definition also implies that slippage will be much more muted, or is it a wrong conclusion to make?
No, that conclusion cannot be drawn. The two are not connected. Because when you look at slippage, something that what we have taken care of is Q2, Q3. Whatever slippage happens in Q4, there will be no interest accrual on that, right? Okay. It may not be a reversal. But there will be no interest accrual.
So I think the margins will take one more quarter to come back to pre-COVID levels, but definitely should be better than Q2.
Sure. And just
let us take the answer very simply as a continuing between what it is for this quarter, third quarter, and what it will be in first quarter of next financial year, assuming that quarter will reflect your full NIM or net interest margin. The next quarter will be in between. Let's put it that way.
Sure. And the entire impact on fee income and interest for all the pro forma slippage have been taken, right?
Entire has been taken. Fee as well as interest.
In the revenue line itself.
Yeah, not in the provision line item.
Correct.
Or in the revenue line.
Thank you, sir. That's it from me.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shilpa from Kotak Mahindra Bank. Please go ahead. Shilpa, you may please go ahead with your question. Looks like no response from the current participant. We take the next question from the line of Venkata Krishnan from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Very good evening, everyone. Just two questions, if you might. One, just wanted to understand the external rating slide that you have shared. Does that surprise you in terms of the upgrades that you have seen from September to December? We have moved very sharply on the AAA there. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on whether that's something that's surprising you, or if there are any insights that you can probably share with us in terms of what might be driving those upgrades. The second bit I wanted to check was just around the fact that the credit card business is now almost 22% of your loans. It's contributing about 60% of your fees. Nearly 75% of that portfolio is very, very high yielding, more than what the retail portfolio itself is earning. So, I mean, at some stage, do you look at the concentration risk that is coming from just one single engine and what you can do around it? Just those two. Thanks.
So let me take the first question. So those are not necessarily upgrades, Venkat. Those are new business which happens, and some of the old business in A or BBB falls off, which we may not necessarily want to pursue again. So it's not so much a reflection. There may be some upgrades, but the large part of that explanation would be because of new business.
Okay, fair point. Many thanks. So just the second bit around the credit card and probably the concentration risk that is emerging from the over dependence on a single engine. Maybe, I mean, I know you have incubated a lot of other businesses which are high ROA. But just wondering, at what stage do you start worrying about? Are there too many eggs in this basket? And yet you want to continue building market share there. You're obviously having a very high profile customer base. So just your thoughts there will be interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, so one of the good things is that the business itself is quite granular. We have 3 million customers. We are also looking at it more as a customer acquisition because the idea over a period of time is to mine the customer base for multiple products, including potentially looking at converting them into savings account customers. So it is, in a way, a customer acquisition engine. It is a highly profitable business. It's something that we have reached a size and scale which therefore allows us to make those investments in those business in terms of analytics, in terms of collections, and become a formidable player. It's a very difficult business to be a marginal player. So from that perspective, we will want to continue to be investing in the business. Obviously, we will not want this to be 50% of the business at any point in time. We are incubating other businesses, as you mentioned, and when those businesses start getting traction, the concentration risk, if you can say that, will moderate over a period of time. But in the interim, yes, it will go up a little more before it starts to moderate.
Hey, Venkat, this is Rajiv. If I can just maybe add, obviously COVID has impacted businesses who are credit cards. So I think if you look at on a 4-6 quarter out, you have 3 or 4 drivers. One is obviously improvement all around.
Wholesale banking, which has actually been pretty much a very low PPOP on a percentage basis, should start coming back, because we do expect the business model we have now will become far better in terms of the collateral business. Our cost of funds, if you've seen, though there is a overall liquidity environment which has been benign, but there is a material improvement in the structure of our cost of funds, almost 100 basis points year on year, and that has still some room to run. I think that itself will give us a little bit of a lift in the overall earnings structure. And then if you look at what has not been highlighted here is the serious amount of cross-sell which is happening of retail assets in through our branch banking, obviously interrupted by COVID, but it started again. Now that once that starts picking pace, you will find that that becomes a natural engine, and most banks have taken that kind of period to actually become more internally sourced rather than externally sourced. So across retail loans, cards, etc., you'll find internal generation improving over time.
Great, many thanks. Just one last question. You are very close to your state level caps on the microcredit business in a couple of states now. Just wanted to understand. You have a self-imposed cap of about 15%, if I'm not wrong, from what I read in the slides. So just wanted to understand your thoughts on how you build that business out, knowing that self-imposed cap is there. Is there any thought around relaxing that cap for maybe states where you have certain more comfort?
So if you actually look at the trend historically for the last 2 years, you will see that we always had 2-3 states which were close to 15%, almost touching 15%, and then came down. And the reason they come, so the way we control this is that there are a whole lot of other states which we entered, let's say, about a year before COVID began. And those states are still to scale up. So if you take the top 5-6 states and then go below, they're all in the 6%, 4%, 5% range. So there is enough room for growth there. And growth here depends on the number of branches we put in. And therefore, mindful of the cap, that's the way our branch opening strategy goes. And that is the reason why we're fairly comfortable of remaining there. Even if you look at, let's say, between March 20 and December 20, you will see that the states, there was a state which was touching almost 15% was brought down. So that's the way the portfolio management goes.
Okay, this was helpful. But many thanks, Abhijit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Manish Shukla from Citigroup. Please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. FY21 in large way has been a year of granularization of your loan book. But if you were to look at beyond that into FY22, how do you see your credit growth, either in absolute terms or relative to the system, given that with economy improving, expectation of credit growth improving for the system is also building up?
Yeah, so Manish, I think I want to just preface it with the idea that the next 3-5 months is very important for us to see how things are evolving. We've highlighted that there are, two emerging risks on small business, which has been the most impacted, and then micro banking in a few geographies. If you take that equation out, I think in all our businesses we have internal growth drivers. Wholesale banking, where we've actually degrown over the last 15 months. Just so as a metric, this quarter we added about 110 customers, 70 customers on the liability and 40 on the advances side. So there is enough for us to do. I don't think today I want to go out and give a very specific guidance. I want to watch the next 4-5 months, get our own house stronger. But we are positioned for growth as the economy comes back, as the uncertainty around a few areas reduces, which we expect to happen in the next 4-5 months. I think we can grow, and frankly, the growth has to be profitable on risk-adjusted basis. And like we said, our effort is right now to get all our ROA structure in shape, including our delivery, digital, as well as our branches. So I think there is enough momentum. Once we are very sure that the economy is on a good footing, it'll all be in a matter of 3 to 4 months more. That's it.
Okay, sure. Moving to funding cost a bit. So you corrected your retail liability franchise quite a bit through the course of this year. but that's also at a time when balance sheet is not growing. Now, if and when the growth does return, how do you see the spread that you offer on retail deposits vis-a-vis your peers? How does that move? I mean, it stays where it is, or will you be forced to start paying higher to garner more deposits?
No, in fact, Manish, we have been bringing it down over the last 5-6 months. Even in the month of Jan, we brought it down, and you should progressively see that coming down. I think, as we mentioned in our commentary, we're about 100 basis points down from a year ago. I think there is still a lot of give in that cost of funds over the next 2-3 quarters. So we think our deposit structure is now getting more and more anchored around a distribution and client segmentation strategy, both in retail and wholesale. So the sensitivity to rate is coming down appreciably. In fact, what is not palpable through our numbers is that we got almost 2,000 to 2,500 crores of high-cost deposits out of our deposit over the last 10 days of December. And that has not impacted our growth. That has not impacted our overall cost of funds. In fact, that flow will actually improve our cost of funds in this quarter. So we are very much on that track. We don't think over the next 3-4 quarters we will have to link any of this from a competitive perspective. In fact, we think there is, as I said, a lot of give in our cost of funds over the next 2-3 quarters. We intend to exercise that and come out as a much stronger cost of funds bank, which can help us build a very competitive client business on the asset side.
Right. That is encouraging. Last question is the cost intensity, the OPEX intensity of the asset growth in a post-COVID world. I mean, whether you take a 12-month view or a longer. How do you compare now versus, let's say, how it was going till FY20 going forward in terms of cost to assets?
So I think there are two major cost drivers for us, and maybe 2 plus 1. I think one is the entire cards, growth, which obviously the number of cards has been just about starting. I think that's a major driver, and we do expect that to continue. And you know that's a large upfront cost. But the fact is that the base of cards is now large enough to start absorbing. And as the economics of the card business becomes settled, we can start absorbing it. That's a major one. Second is our expansion of distribution and distribution plus people. I think we've done about 75-80 branches over the last 15-18 months. We probably will do another 75-80 in this calendar year. Again, those will be metro-urban centric in the existing clusters. So the payback periods will be far better than what was when we were far smaller. And the third element will be technology refreshes, which are happening far faster, IT security, resilience 24/7. So these are the broad costs. Obviously, COVID has given us an enormous opportunity to digitize much faster. So, even in our cards business now, a lot of the stuff we used to do physically has now become digital. Obviously, this is more a progressive thing, and we believe that at some size and scale, the cost to income dynamics will start getting divorced from the growth rates in cards, which we'll see. But I still think that's about 2 to 3 quarters away once we get that base right.
Perfect. That is clear. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Roshan Chutki, may please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking my question. Sir, I wanted to understand the accounting that you follow for a customer who has taken moratorium but has paid a couple of installments, 1 or 2 installments during that moratorium period. How are you accounting for those customers? I'm talking about MFI book.
When you say accounting meaning, if you could just elaborate.
So when you say 88 to 90% collection efficient, I'm just trying to reconcile this number with the credit cost guidance that you are giving. And you referred to a customer in the morat pool, the payments that have come in the morat period, during the morat period from the morat pool as an offset to the credit cost being a lower number.
So collection efficiency is a function of the amount you collect versus the demand you generate for that month.
Right.
Yeah,
so if it is 88 to 90%, how is it that the credit cost will only be 2 to 2.5% or thereabouts?
The credit cost will credit cost for the year will be 2.5% because it is a function of how much will be in our 90 plus pool. On that, you will take a provision. And then some bit of FLDG will get adjusted as well. The FLDG adjustment happens after a lag of, in the next quarter, to which it becomes 90. Therefore, on our portfolio, you will see hence the credit cost, which will be slightly lower because there is an FLDG.
So because of FLDG, the credit cost. Okay, what portion of the credit of the MFI book is helped by the FLDG arrangement that you have?
About 40 to 45%.
40 to 45%. And these and predominantly the West Bengal book is supported by the FLDG arrangements. Is that the right understanding?
Part of it is.
Yeah, but half of it is.
But West Bengal, please bear in mind, is running at a collection efficiency today of 90%.
Understood. Thank you so much. That's all from my side.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Harish Kapoor from IIFL AMC. Please go ahead.
Sir, thanks for the opportunity. Sir, questions. First, I just want to get a sense on the provision going into next couple of quarters. You had guided for around credit cost around similar to last year for this year. But there were comments around credit card provisioning even going into maybe Q1. And maybe some of the other product lines like maybe MFI, etc., also being there, and also your retail GNPA that you have mentioned in the PPT performa wise, that also being higher. So and even the COVID buffer, you have kind of utilized a large part of it. So how are you looking at the credit cost estimate for this year, also in terms of building some buffers and even going into Q1? How heavy could those things be? That's the first question.
So credit cost for the next quarter should be give or take around the current numbers in the 5-10% range. Next year, honestly, is a little too early for us to comment on. I think we will want to see how Q4 pans out. By that time, we will have also a better handle on general economic trends for the next year. So we should be able to give some guidance on credit cost for the next year by Q4. Suffice to say, obviously, given that this was a COVID-heavy year, next year is going to be definitely significantly lower.
So my question was largely a Q1 number, considering there is going to be some spillover there. So the question was largely.
So the moderation of credit costs will continue to moderate. So let's assume that the total credit cost number for next year is, let's say, 100. It's not going to be 25 for Q1. It's going to be higher.
Sir, second, just want to get a sense. So, there were some questions around growth, and then maybe there is some visibility that you're kind of looking at for the next 3 to 4 months before you communicate to us. But, there were some comments around trying to even focus on BBB and below, corporates for growth going ahead. I know all of them might not really be too bad, but, largely, what is the corporate strategy now incrementally? Let's say in terms of ratings or in terms of growth, because you kind of sounded that you are really focusing that going ahead, which you didn't do previously.
No. So I think let me just clarify. The comment was that our BBB portfolio is very granular. It has stayed in the same risk bucket for years, and it has a fairly good model cost of credit, which we've always been able to absorb. The endeavor and objective is to improve our exposure to A and above. That was clearly said. We are not increasing our BBB book. In fact, the endeavor should be to lower it as much as we can. The other comment was that when we are working with A and above, as was rightly pointed out, the NIMs on advances are obviously going to be not exactly what you can get on the in sub-investment grade book. And the comment was that we actually make a lot of our business around not just advances, but liability revenue, cash management, FX, trade, etc. In fact, on our overall wholesale book, not more than 55-60% of the net income comes from advances income. The rest comes from liabilities, FX, trade. And I made a comment that of the 110 clients we've acquired in this quarter, 70 of them are liability centric, which means trade, FX, salary, as well as deposit income.
The corporate client.
Corporate clients. And this is the model which we've always had. It's been accentuated, and this period of the last 12-18 months has allowed us to sharpen it. And there is enough opportunity for our size of the bank for the next few years to continue doing on the same philosophy rather than sacrificing our overall risk profile just to get NIMs on advances. I hope that clarifies.
Sure. That's helpful. Thanks. So sorry, just that provision line, I just missed that part. So there is no change to the guidance for this year, right? Though you kind of mentioned next year is still far, but at least for FY21, credit cost guidance.
I mentioned that the Q4 number should be give or take within the
5-10% of this one. Yeah, sure.
Of the Q3 number.
Sure. Great. Sir, and two quick last questions. One is this NII number. I think last quarter you had mentioned that NII will possibly come back to, let's say, around the 1,000 crore number for Q4. There seems to be maybe it's still over on that one to Q1. Is that right, or you kind of going to be at that 1,000 crore number?
No, that is right. It's going to be somewhere between the Q2 number and 1,000. Can't say, but I don't think it's crossing 1,000.
Sure. And last, sir, collection efficiency given out for the business loan segment, mentioned is 96% of pre-COVID level. The pre-COVID level, and is that then come?
Repeat that, collection efficiency on business loans?
Yeah. So what is the collection efficiency of business loans? I think you mentioned it is 96% of pre-COVID.
Yes.
Pre-COVID
number? We are not fully back. We are not at 100% pre-COVID. We are at about 96% pre-COVID.
What was the pre-COVID number?
Pre-COVID number was in the region of about 96-97%.
Okay. Sure, sir. Great, sir. Thanks a lot for answering my question. Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now conclude the Q&A session. If you have any further questions, please contact RBL Bank Limited via email at ir@rblbank.com. I repeat, ir@rblbank.com. On behalf of RBL Bank Limited, we thank you for joining us this evening. You may please disconnect your lines now. Thank you.